Okay.
Let me just jump on and
Separate recording. That's good.
all right, we're going to be so we can watch this again on YouTube. Is that
Great.
ready? You're good to go.
Good to go.
All right. Thank you all very much for staying on the Zoom call this morning, and I'm glad to have you with us. And I want to again thank Maggie, who is holding her trusty iPad, and she will be doing the video and audio recording through that device today as we walk through and get a bird's eye view of the inside of the organ. I also want to thank Joe DiPalermo again for his work on the technology side. Joe also is going to be featured this morning as our guest organist. He didn't know until he came in this morning that he was qualified to take that role on. So he'll be helping us at the organ console while Maggie and I are inside. Also, I want to thank Joe for work he did this week in the archives of the church, digging out some photographs of the organ construction project here at Christ Church. And so he's put together a slideshow of about 18 photos, I think, that he'll play at the end of this forum session. So stay on board and look at the slideshow. I'm looking forward to seeing it as well. And I'm sure it will provide lots of interesting sights in terms of the parts laid out here in the church and the construction process as the organ went together. Okay, so we're going to start today by walking back inside the organ, and we are going to first visit the room where the wind gets pumped inside of the instrument. So Maggie, follow me. So we are back here in behind the instrument. This is not actually part of the organ case, but it's in a little separate room. This device here, this green big motor, is our compressor. And so it forces air inside the instrument, inside the wind chambers of the instrument. And so the air is pumped through this device up into this ductwork here, and it ends up in this what we call wind reservoir. And the reservoir holds the air and makes it stable in terms of the compression. So these springs are on it, and as well, I don't think you can see, but there are weights on the top of that as well that also act to stabilize that pressure. And you probably can see from there's a pulley and some rope, and that device acts to regulate the amount of wind that comes in to this wind reservoir. And so as more wind is drawn out of the reservoir, there's a door inside here that opens more and allows more air in. And so the whole process equalizes. I'm going to ask Joe to go to the organ console now and turn on the wind, and you'll have a chance to hear this device start up. And as well, maybe Maggie, if you'd put the camera on the reservoir so we can see that will expand as the wind comes on. There we have it. So we are good to go here now with wind pressure, and so we're gonna walk across sort of an aisleway outside and go into the organ chamber itself. And as we do that, I want to point something very interesting out to you that was pointed out to me when I first arrived here at Christ Church, and that is the quality of the back of this organ and the side that you never see. I mean, these are beautifully finished panels, just fantastically nice woodwork, and this is consistent all the way around the organ on the outside, whether you can see it from the congregation or not. It's also consistent on the top of the instrument, where no one would ever hardly go there. And just beautifully done craftsmanship, and it's universal throughout this instrument, both visually and sound-wise. All right, so now the interesting part. We're going to go inside this organ case. And the first thing I'm going to point out is that we have similar wind reservoirs inside here. There's one up at this level, and there's another one down here, and then two more as well stacked on top of one another over there. And each one of those is connected to one of the divisions of the organ. One is for the pedal division, another is for the lower keyboard, the choir division, third for the great division, and then the swell division. And we talked about those last week and how those are actuated outside from the console. This organ actually is in three levels. This is the lowest level. And on this level are some of the bass pipes, some of the largest pipes in the instrument, because those bass pipes are long and they need height. So they go up actually to the next level above us, where the vast majority of the pipes are located. So second level is where majority of the pipes are located. And then the third level I consider is the roof of the organ. And we actually can access that as well, for mostly for cleaning and so forth, the maintenance. I am going to just walk back a little bit here, and Maggie will follow me. And I want to point out this set of wooden pipes. Last week, we talked about the fact that pipes are made of different materials. And this is a great example of a set of bass pipes that are made of wood. And you can't see the tops of these pipes from here, but you certainly can see, the mouths, as we were talking last week. Pipes have human anatomy names. And so we have an upper lip, and there's not really a lower lip to this pipe, but there are ears that focus the wind across this surface. Now, Joe's going to make his organ debut this morning, and he's going to play one of these pipes. He's going to play one of the notes in the pedal for us. Yeah, just hold that out, Joe. That's this pipe right here. And I can put my hand in here and stop the wind from hitting that upper surface or take it away. And there's a small, narrow slot there that's focusing the wind across that surface. You can keep holding it. And I'll just do this one more time to remind you. So thank you, Joe. That's great. So yeah, that's one of these pipes, and we'll go up the ladder and we'll show you the tops of these pipes as well in just a bit. So I'm going to just proceed around here and have Maggie follow me, and go to another set of big pipes, different composition this time. These are large metal pipes, and these resonators are made of zinc. These are some of the longest pipes in the organ. This one right here is 16 feet long, including this, what we call miter, where the metal is kind of wrapped in a circle. That allows obviously more pipe space in a limited size, limited height here in this room. So these pipes we will see as well from up above, the upper part of them. We're going to come around. Yeah, some detail there. And we'll just come around here. And I'm going to go up the ladder, and then I'm going to let Maggie show you what the ladder looks like from there. And this is the ladder that goes not just to the second level, but it also goes to the roof. So can you, point that camera up there. So there's a trap door up at the very top that opens to get access to the roof of the organ. And I'm standing right now on the second level, and we're going to, yeah, good. Actually, I'm not standing, I'm kneeling, which is a good place for somebody in church to be. All right.
We can hear you, but not see.
Yep. So we're just passing the iPad along here. Maggie's got to climb the ladder too. So this is a bit of acrobatics too, as well as a hammer work for Maggie. All right, that goes back to you. All right, I'm going to stay kneeling down here because I'm going to show you the tops of these pipes, these wooden pipes that we looked at. Right here where my right hand is, these are the tops of them. These pipes are tuned with these stoppers. So last week we looked at a little demo pipe that had a band at the top for the metal to slide up and down. These have these stoppers that actually slide up and down in the pipes to tune them. And I also want to point out here to your right is the rest of this set of pipes hanging upside down. So if we look at these, you can see the mouths are up at the top, and these black tubes right here are what brings the wind to the pipes from this wind chest here. So those, there wasn't enough room to put the pipes on the wind chest. So they separated the wind chests from the pipes and tubed them off with that black tubing. Let me just also remind you that you can use the chat function if you have a question, and we'd be happy to take questions as we go along here. The black tubing, you might think, oh, well, there's a delay because of the length of that tubing. There might be a delay in the production of the sound, and that's not at all the case. Though it's pretty much immediate. As soon as one of those pipes is played, that tubing does its job and takes the sound pretty instantaneous, or produces the sound pretty instantaneously. So fascinating the way they've maximized space inside this instrument. And we'll see today lots of examples of how carefully that was designed, how carefully this was designed and laid out, both for human access, because some organs are just impossible to get in and out of. I mean, what we just did was relatively comfortable inside of organs. I mean, there are organs where you literally have to crawl on your hands and knees, sometimes crawl on your belly to reach a place to do some maintenance or something. This instrument is beautifully laid out to access for maintenance people and human activity. Not large groups though, but certainly we can easily access it. And today we have a terrific advantage to be able to take you inside here. I've been doing organ tours like this for 40 years, and I've never had the opportunity that I do today to show you the details of how one of these wonderful musical instruments works. Okay, are there any questions or anything on chat? All right, now we're going to show you
folks saying how amazing this is. It's really cool.
Okay, so last week, those of you who were with us recall that we talked about the three keyboards on the organ: the choir, the grate, and the swell. And so we're going to start with the lowest of those keyboards today. We're going to work our way up then to the grate and then the swell. And so the pipes for the choir division, that keyboard, are behind these doors here. And the reason they're separate doors is because they allow the maintenance person to access different parts back in behind here, different pipes actually, to do the tuning. That's really what these access doors are for, is tuning. I'm going to open one of them and have Maggie show you what's inside there. And just open another here so I can sort of point out some things as we talk. All right, so here we have, like I said, the choir division. And last week I was also talking with you about the big Venetian blind louvers that changed the volume in the organ. And those louvers, Maggie just panned across, and they're closed right now. They're right here. And you see it looks like a wall, but it really is not. It's just these louvers closed. And I'm going to ask Joe to open the louvers here of the choir division and show us what happens when he pushes that pedal. So they're capable of, slow movement or fast movement, depending on the speed that the organist wants the sound to increase or decrease. And Joe's going to close them now. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's how those work. There's an actual motor that powers those. And there's one for our swell division too, which we'll see later on. Let me point out some details, some additional details inside of here. I want to look first at the ceiling because it's interesting. Again, here's another space-saving devices where they've mounted these wooden pipes up on the ceiling, and again, tubed them off with these black tubes down to the main wind chest. So those tubes originate in the place on the wind chest where there might have been pipes, but they've saved space because those wooden pipes are rather large. And then so if we look also up at the ceiling, near the ceiling, we have these pipes here that are actually sort of soldered sideways. Again, ceiling height is limited in here. So when they designed the organ, they did it in such a way that would allow them to have additional length of the pipes and still manage to get them inside this relatively small room. Looking at the pipes themselves, there's a couple of interesting things I'd like to point out here. On that same side, if you look at these pipes, they have caps on them. And last week, someone asked about how often or whether the pipes needed to be maintained or cleaned. And you can see, I think, from this angle that there is a little layer of dust on the tops of these pipes already. And I guessed last week that maybe when the organ was 50 years old, you know, they might have to be taken out and cleaned and the chests vacuumed and so forth. But that will remain to be seen in 2056 when the organ is 50 years old. In terms of the materials of pipes, we have in this division some great examples of lots of different materials. We have the wooden pipes on the ceiling that you already saw. And then last week I was mentioning as well that we have a material called spotted metal in organ pipes. And that's a combination of tin and zinc. I'm sorry, tin and lead. And we have some of these in the very back here. And you can see this literal spots on these pipes in the very back row there. So that's an example of spotted metal. We also have some zinc pipes here. So the smoother pipes right in front of the spotted metal pipes, those are made of zinc. And some more spotted metal here. We also have some pipes that I believe are made out of pretty high content tin right here. And you see that's shiny like those front pipes that you see when you're out in the congregation looking at the organ from the pews. Also going back to last week, we talked a little bit, someone asked, I think, about how organ pipes were tuned. And we have a number of different tuning methods right here in front of us on these pipes. I'm going to stay on the same side, starting with those spotted metal pipes. These are called scroll tuning devices at the ends of these pipes. And those scrolls are literally rolled up or unrolled to lengthen or shorten the effective length of the pipe. And that's how that particular stop is tuned. We also have some slides on some of these pipes, similar to what I was showing you last week on the pipe that we had out at the console. And those slides, those pieces of metal are moved up and down to lengthen or shorten the effective length of the pipes. Now, if you look down here at the ones I was pointing out earlier with a little bit of dust that you could see, these are capped pipes, and that little bit of felt, red felt on them prevent vibrations from occurring while the pipes are sounding. And those caps are movable. They literally sit on top of the pipes and they're tightly fit, but they can be moved up and down. And as you move them up and down, that changes the pitch as well on these pipes. I think that covers our tuning, tuning devices here in the choir, and that's pretty much a good sort of list of the way pipes are tuned.
We have some questions about the ties, these cloth ties.
Great question. So, question about the ties, and you can see examples of these here with the longer pipes. So, pipes are really mounted on what we call rack boards down here in the low part, and you can see with these little pipes, they actually go through these rack boards and then sit on the wind chest, which is about 4 inches below these rack boards. And obviously, small pipes like this are easily supported by just that 4-inch high rack board. But the longer pipes, those that obviously are larger and heavier, require additional support. So they build these support wooden structures and then basically tie them to the wooden structure so that the pipe doesn't, bend over or topple over or anything. Those are securely tied there. And you can see the ones on the end of the chest. Those are also tied as well, because those are large, relatively heavy pipes. Great question about the ties that hold these pipes up
here as well.
Yeah, ties on both sides actually.
Lots of supports in there. You've got metal supports soldered.
Yes, so these
well.
Right. Good point, Maggie. Yeah, these large zinc pipes that are sort of bent over have these supports to prevent them from bending any farther than they were intended to go. So yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Other questions? Or we?
No more questions as of now.
Okay, so we're going to go back down this ladder.
All right. Stop the video.
I'm going to close the doors. So Maggie will go down the down the ladder. And I thought what we would do next is take a look at some of the mechanism of the organ. The inside of the wind chest, we can actually take a bird's eye view look at. And Joe, I wonder if you'd turn the wind off now. I'm going to wait until the pressure diminishes inside this wind system, the lungs of the organ. All right, now I hear the compressor is now turned off, and I'm actually watching a reservoir down there to make sure that it collapses all the way before I open up this wind chest. And I'm going to take this piece of wood that protects the inside of the wind chest. We've got a little bit of pressure in there, but not much.
Oh, we just felt a little gust of air.
We definitely had a nice breath of fresh air here from inside. So inside the wind chest here, you see basically magnets that actually are electrically powered, and they cause this pull down wire to pull down and open a pallet that you see up against the bottom of the chest there. When that pallet opens, it lets wind inside a channel that runs front to back in the chest. And so that allows, this particular note actually is D sharp, and that allows the D sharp channel to be energized with wind. And then if you push down a key within that channel, you will get, and the stop is pulled, you will get a certain stop to sound or combination of stops to sound. There's a lot of leather components in here. The pallet itself has leather that seals it to the bottom of the chest when it's closed, so that we don't have sound happening when we don't intend it to happen. And as well, this board that I pulled off is sort of covered with leather around the outsides to prevent any air leakage. So that keeps the inside. This organ is relatively quiet in terms of air leaking because these are relatively new parts. So actually the reservoirs have quite a bit of leather around them as well that we looked at earlier, and we will take a peek at one of those as we go by. Are there any questions here while this is still open, because I'm going to close it up so the wind can go back on?
Yes. Is there one of these mechanisms for every pipe?
There is one of these mechanisms for every note, actually. So as I pointed out, this is C sharp, D sharp, F, G, A. So there's one of those for every pipe, for every key on the organ. That's a better way of thinking of it.
Yeah.
And so there's another layer of control that's actuated by the stops. And above these pallets, above these key channels, are pieces of wood that run this way. And when you put a stop on, and those pieces of wood, actually pieces of masonite, have holes cut in them. And so when you turn a stop on, it pushes the masonite so that the hole in the chest lines up with the hole in the pipe, and the wind is allowed to go in that particular pipe. So if I have one stop on, I play this D sharp, then I'm getting the D sharp playing on that one stop that's turned on, because that piece of masonite underneath those pipes in that stop is actually lined up to let air into the pipe.
Got it. So these control pitch only, and then there's a separate mechanism controlling stops.
That is correct.
Okay.
Wow, we have some really detail-minded people. I wasn't sure we'd be allowed to get into that subject this morning, but yes, that's exactly the way that works. Yeah.
Very cool.
Somebody also asked, I think earlier, about tuning reed stops, and I'm gonna defray that question until we're up on the next level at the next in the grade division, because there are some more visible reed pipes up there that we can talk about in terms of tuning them. Other questions, or are we ready to?
I think we can move
Here. Okay, I'm gonna put this back into place and secure it so that we are able to turn the wind back on.
Now, do we need Joe to
hang on a second.
Oh.
We do need Joe to turn the wind back on. So Joe, you're good?
It's gonna get a little louder.
Let's see. I think we'll just make sure that it seals tightly.
Yeah.
There's the compressor starting. And we have wind and no air leakage here. So we are
Awesome.
good to go.
All right.
So we're gonna just go down to the next level. And Maggie, while you're right there,
Mhm.
there's a couple of interesting things. So we just talked about the stops and those masonite pieces of wood that go this way across the chest. These are the motors that actually cause those pieces of masonite to work. So each one of these is connected to one of the choir stops. And when a choir stop is pulled out, that actuates. And actually, Joe, are you still at the console? I thought one of the things Joe didn't learn to do this morning was can you pull a stop out on the choir division? Is that obvious enough from there? So that would be on the right side of you. Yep. Okay, so do that again, Joe. So push that stop back in. Great. Now do that again. Yep, and that's basically moving that piece of masonite and turning that row of pipes, accessing that row of pipes for playing. So yeah, that's how the stop action works. And then over here, I was mentioning earlier the leather in the reservoirs. So these corners of the reservoir are made of leather, and they found over the years their substitutes have been tried. They've done all kinds of experimentation with plastics because plastics last a lot longer than leather. But plastics are not nearly as flexible and not nearly as effective and not nearly as adhesive as these leather pieces are. And there are experts in the field that just re-leather these reservoirs. They go around from pipe organ builder to pipe organ builder,
Wow.
and they're so competent that that's what they do for work. It's just highly specialized. It's kind of like a little bit like sheetrock work. Like sheetrockers are so incredibly fast hauling around those big pieces of sheetrock, and these guys, obviously not the size material, but it's the same kind of specialized skill.
Very cool.
All right.
So we did get a question back about if that door had been open and the air had been started before we had closed it, would it have been overwhelming? Would it have been a gust of wind
Yes,
at us?
it absolutely would have been. Yeah, because the compressor would have been working full force because everything would be calling for additional air,
Mhm.
and so obviously that would put a lot of strain on that compressor motor. So that's why we were really careful that the organ doesn't get turned on when there's some kind of an opening in the wind system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And then Wendy says the organ has to be the only instrument you can get inside of, which I think is probably true.
That probably is true. Yes, actually. Yeah. All right.
Oh, Claudia wants to know how long this leather will kind of last.
Yeah, that's a great question, Claudia, and that's a perennial problem. It depends largely on the quality, the original quality of the leather. And so I would say, we're talking anywhere from 50 to 100 years, depending on the quality of the leather, and also depending on the atmosphere in which the leather is finding itself. So if it's subjected to lots and lots of, temperature changes, very dry to very wet humidity conditions, it's going to deteriorate more quickly than if the temperature and humidity is relatively uniform in a space.
So is that kind of why is that one of the reasons we have those humidifiers going?
That's one of the reasons we have the humidifiers going, but it's mainly the wood. I mean,
Sure.
Phenomenal amount of wood goes into this instrument,
Yeah.
and we hope will stay stable for many, many years.
I want to show them that it actually is labeled. This is the grate. And then can we see
Yeah.
the swell
It's the swell, so those
down here?
those different
So
keyboards.
just like you said, each keyboard requires a different compressor. And then we have a question about what is the air pressure in the chests?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, really quizzing
It
you.
is a very specific pressure, and I just do not know the answer to that question. Obviously, it's uniform throughout the organ, and they've measured the air pressure very carefully and calibrated the springs and the weights to produce that air pressure. Air pressures in Oregon vary largely. The instruments from the Baroque period tend to run on low pressure. And as we get into the Romantic era and the contemporary, we are going into high pressures. And again, somewhat dependent too on the particular builder's philosophy about things.
That leads really well into the next question about, pipe organs having been in existence prior to electricity. So would older pipe organs be as complicated in their structure prior to electricity?
So that's another great question. So these slider chests, called slider chests because of those slides in them that actuate the stops, those are the oldest type of wind chests that we have. And those were used back before electricity, but instead of electric motors powering the pallet underneath the pipe channels or the stops themselves, we had levers that were connected to the stops out there, and then what are called trackers that were connected to the keys out there. So both of those systems ran on on direct mechanical components, and so those things go back to the 1200s in Europe, and we still have instruments that are set up that way and still have those old systems in them. So yeah, this is an ancient technology really, and electricity has helped make it easier to build them, and as well as more flexible in terms of where you could place pipes relative to a console. So with those mechanical systems, the console had to be really close to the pipes. So you were kind of forced to put the console in a fixed place because you couldn't move it because it was all mechanical and levers and stuff connecting it. And so that didn't allow you a really good perspective on how the sound was in the room. And this way, we have a console that moves. It's even on wheels, but it's also far enough away from the pipes so that we get a good perspective on what it sounds like.
Yeah, neat. Okay, I think we're good to move on.
All right, and we're going to go up another ladder here.
Going over that
We're
way.
going over that way.
All right,
Yep.
get out of your way.
All right, I'll get up there first and grab the iPad from you. Joe, would you close the other pedal out there, the swell that you opened the choir and shut the choir on the left? Could you? Nice. Now we'll have room to stand in here. Yep, that's perfect. Now don't touch it because you'll throw me right into the pipes if you do.
Oh dear. Want me to follow you?
Yeah, sure. Yep. Just be careful.
Sure will.
We don't want any falls here.
Yes.
Maggie is such a good sport. All right, so we are now in the great division of the organ, and these pipes are they're associated with the middle keyboard on the console that we looked at last week. And Maggie's going to scan sort of where we are here, and you can see that we are right behind the facade with these pipes. And the facade pipes are the ones that you can see from the room, very shiny tin. We're now at the opposite side of it. Maybe you can see through to the room, and there's our debutante out there at the console.
Hey Joe.
Hey Joe. All right. So again, this is another wind chest set up much the same as the choir wind chest was that we looked at earlier. And so various kinds of materials for the pipes, various sorts of caps and tops. We have a pretty good ceiling height here, so there was no need to do any mitering on these longer pipes at the extremes. And so yeah, no mitered pipes to look at here. I will talk about tuning the reed pipes because we have some close by that we can easily see. And this is an example of a reed pipe right here. And you can see that it looks different from our flue pipes. It doesn't have a mouth on it, and it's conical instead of being cylindrical. And you'll see here, there's a little wire that protrudes out from the base of the pipe. Inside the base of this reed pipe is a little vibrating reed. And it's it's what makes the sound, and it works much the way a clarinet reed works on a clarinet instrument in the orchestra or band. And the wire that goes into that bass part is actually used to tune that reed. The wire is pressed up against the reed itself, and so you can effectively shorten the length of the reed or lengthen it by changing the position of that wire. So these end two stops are the reed stops on this division, and reeds are generally put on the end because they're the thing that is the most likely to need tuning. So when our service people come twice a year, generally the whole organ doesn't get tuned. I keep a list of things that need attention, and they listen as well, but they usually start with the reeds and tune those because, like I said, they do tend to be a little bit less stable than some of the other pipes. Let's see here. I guess, are there any questions, I guess? Let's start with that.
Yes. What are the reeds made of?
So the reeds themselves, and I'm not going to take one apart because it will automatically go out of tune.
Yeah.
The reed itself is made of brass.
Oh, so
Yep.
not like a
Not wood at all.
Right.
Not like a clarinet in that respect, but they are made of brass. I think because it's relatively long lasting and durable and hard, so that it doesn't break down. And there is that wire that presses against it, so there is some friction as that little reed is tuned, and so we don't want it to scrape away metal basically, and obviously try to make it last as long as possible.
Right. Wood would be too delicate.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Are they normal wood reeds? Yeah, we have questions about it. So yeah, so brass reeds, very cool.
So one other thing I might point out is our facade pipes are also tubed off from the main wind chest. So every one of the pipes in the facade of this organ is a speaking pipe. And so these black tubes come out of the wind chest and basically allow these pipes in the front right here that you see to speak. And all of the pipes in the facade, like I said, are either from the great division or from the pedal division. Some of them are pedal pipes, some of the longer ones.
Yeah, like are those guys pedals?
Yeah, they would. I would suspect that, and I'm not sure exactly how those are configured, but I would suspect that maybe those are some pedal pipes. You can see these are long, heavy pipes, and so they're supported with these wooden structures, the upper parts. Supported with these wooden structures that hold them stable in place. These facade pipes are scroll tuned as well. We looked at the scroll tuning system in the choir, and so to tune these, the scrolls are rolled up or down, depending. All right, so now we're standing in front of the swell division right now, which is the division that's associated with the upper keyboard on the organ. And this has these Venetian blind louvers on them as well. And I had asked Joe to close them because when they're open, there's nowhere near as comfortable amount of space for us to walk as there is now. So we're going to leave these closed. But there is the motor that causes them to open and close, the simple sort of a motor with different stages on it. So I think there are 20 stages to this. So as you you push that pedal open, it gradually causes these louvers to open. Again, not going to demonstrate that here, but I will show you the inside of the choir. So I'm going to open our inside of the swell, sorry. I'm going to open the door into the swell and let Maggie give you a bird's eye view of this division, which is controlled by the top keyboard. So again, we see lots of things we've seen earlier, pipes that are bent to accommodate a limited ceiling height, tuning of various sorts, capped pipes, slide tune pipes. The reed, in this case, the reed pipes are in the back of this chest, but there is a complete walkway back there where you can access the lowest, all the pipes from the lowest to the highest.
So we did have a question about how do the tuners get to some of these scrolls? How do you access
Yeah, very carefully.
very carefully. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, you could probably show them this board
Yeah, so
here.
this is like a
So it's
walkway.
like a walkway between the sides of the chest, and then obviously they can access these.
Mhm.
And I think a foot carefully placed over there would allow them to access those. Again, these facade pipes do not need to be tuned very often at
As
all. They're
often.
not like these reed pipes that are more accessible, where
Sure.
we need to be accessing them on a frequent basis. Yeah. One thing that's interesting to think about as we look at this chest again is these chests are laid out. These are they're I think called V chests, and that's because look, the sides are divided. So low C is over on that side, C sharp is over here, D goes back to that original C side, D sharp goes back to this side, and the chests are laid out that way so that gradually we have this sort of V-shaped form as the pipes get smaller and smaller on either side of the instrument. And it's difficult to see this because we're so close, but if we could back up and look, it would be kind of in the shape of a V. And wind chests can be laid out different ways.
This is a little easier to see with the reeds, the way that this height difference is laid out is pretty much how all of these are looking, just more compact.
Yeah, and so you can see obviously now the way we easily get to 2,600 pipes. There's just an incredible array of pipes here.
Bruce, what's hard to see in the video is that is on the back side of the organ. These pipes are on the front.
Yeah, so Joe just pointed out that we're looking at sort of the back wall of the organ inside this swell chamber here.
So this back wall was that beautiful
On the other side is
that
that beautiful
woodwork.
paneled woodwork. Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yes, and so bring you around now facing the other way, and we are looking out into the church.
Yeah. Yeah. Good perspective there.
Yeah.
I wonder if there are any other questions, because I think we've pretty much covered the material I had intended to cover.
So remind us of the filigree use, somebody says.
So I think they're talking about the pipe screens, which are
yes. Yes.
are,
Okay.
kind of carved, but they're machine carved to some degree. There's a pattern there that can be replicated with these high-tech woodworking tools nowadays. But it's it's definitely beautifully done and nice to look at. Also makes a difference, as I was mentioning last week, in terms of the sound. It tends to filter our sound a little bit, make it more mellow as the sound gets out through the complex filigree.
And are these kind of sails, are they also functional?
So I guess are we
Tops,
talking
yes.
about this?
Yeah.
So this is basically just the roof structure. It's basically supporting what you see outside the shape of the design that you see from the front of the instrument. This is just the underside of that supporting structure. And as I said earlier, it's so well built that you can walk up there and, from time to time, we need to get up there to do some vacuuming because the dust does accumulate there on those dark surfaces, and it can be pretty easily seen. I don't know how well the dust shows up on that in here, Maggie, but if we look at these are a little bit larger pipes than we saw in the choir division, and you can see there is a bit of cloudiness to the top of those where we've got some dust accumulating.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. So how is the sound from all these pipes directed out? Considering, I guess, the pipes are facing the ceiling.
The pipes are facing the ceiling, exactly. But the pipes, the sound really originates at the mouths of the pipes. The pipes that have mouths, and the reed sound originates at the reed. And so it's producing, these pipes are producing from multi directions. I mean, the sound is being not just produced from the end of the pipe. You might think that, but the pipe itself is just a wave that's vibrating. You know, it's just a sound wave that's vibrating, and the length of the pipe, you know, only affects the pitch of that, and the length, obviously the length of that sound wave, and therefore the pitch of the sound. So, you know, we obviously don't want to have absorbent surfaces anywhere around. And so these are all these surfaces in here are very hard surfaces. They're all made of wood, including the ceiling structure that we were just looking at, to again, make sure that as much sound gets out of the instrument as possible.
Oh my goodness. How many miles of pipe are in this organ?
Well, now there's a trivia question.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, obviously miles. I don't know, you know, how one would calculate that, but I think it would take a long
Would take a long
to figure that
time.
one out. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's one. Let us know if you figure it out. And then, oh, Susan wants to know if you took a course in organ construction to understand how different organs are made, or if that's, you know, is that part of your training?
Yeah, so in college, there was an organ history and design course, but that wasn't actually as helpful as the physics course that musicians are allowed to take. So I went to a college called Oberlin, and Oberlin has a conservatory, which I was in, and then it also has a College of Arts and Sciences. And so they offered in the College of Arts and Sciences this physics of music course taught by this wonderful, quirky professor who just was incredibly knowledgeable and smart about physics. And he was sort of the spitting image of what you might think. I mean, if you picture photographs of Einstein with kind of disheveled hair and just really sort of a quirky looking person, that's what this professor was. And I can remember exactly what he looks like, but I cannot for the life of me remember his name.
Of course.
But I learned an awful lot in that course about physics, about vibrating columns and vibrating strings and various things like that have stuck with me. But I also had 2 years of experience working full-time in the organ building field when I first finished college. So that's given me a huge level of comfort inside these instruments, as well as ability to sometimes repair some simple things that just go wrong day by day out of an instrument that gets used quite a bit.
Yeah, so it might not be every organist might not be as well versed.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, sometimes organ maintenance people tell organists, you stay out of the instrument now. You know, I don't want to catch anything I don't want to see any evidence that you've been in the instrument. But our guy doesn't have that level of concern. So I've been able to come back and take photographs of problems and get sort of advice from him a long distance without, you know, making him come out here. So there are advantages to having some training in organ building.
So Bert wants to know if the reeds wear out at the wire for these.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, I guess, you know, we're talking about hundreds of years that would happen.
Because they're brass.
Just because of that wear and tear on the reed. And there's also inside of that block, there's a component, there's a wooden wedge that actually holds the reed stable inside the block. And the weak link is really the wooden wedge.
That makes sense.
Will deteriorate over time.
Sure.
And so those wedges would have to be replaced probably earlier than the reed itself or the wire.
Cool. Just checking on all of our questions. Yeah, I think we've gotten to all of them.
Super.
Yep. Very cool.
Okay, so if there are no further questions, then we'll have Joe fire up the slideshow presentation that he's prepared for us, showing the construction of the organ. Thank you all very much for being here today.
Thank you, Bruce. All right, we're gonna go. Mark says thank you. Mark also said he's glad that we're up on our workman's comp coverage. So we're gonna turn the video off and head down while Joe is showing you all what 2006 looked like while the organ was being put together. So thanks, everyone.
And you might have to allow me to share.
So,
Share screen.
see, yeah. I wonder if I can give you the host. If you're on as, you should be able to now. There it goes.